My name is James, and I'm a professional ghost hunter. I've faced the dead more times than I can count. I've seen apparitions flicker in dark hallways, felt the icy grip of the paranormal in forgotten cemeteries, and chased shadows through decaying manors. But nothing, absolutely nothing prepared me for this, for the darkness beneath the earth, for the truth that hides in the winding catacombs under the old French monastery, for the Rugmaker. It all began with a story, one that made its way to me through hushed conversations among occultists and ghost hunters, passed along like a secret too dangerous to say aloud. Deep in the catacombs of a crumbling monastery, hidden beneath layers of stone and history, there lived a blind rugmaker. He was no ordinary artisan, though. He weaved rugs from human hair and tears, they said. And in every rug, he trapped a demon. It sounded like a nightmare conjured from old folklore, something born from the fevered minds of those who'd seen too much. But the more I dug into the legend, the more I found. Bits of truth hidden in parish records, vague mentions in letters from monks long dead, rumors that the Vatican itself once sent priests down into the depths to face whatever lurked there. None returned. The village near the monastery wouldn't speak of it directly, but there was a palpable fear when I mentioned the place, as if the very name conjured something evil. I should have taken that as a sign and turned around. But curiosity, as it always does, pulled me deeper. The monastery, or what was left of it, stood on the outskirts of the village, overgrown and forgotten. Its stone walls were crumbling, ivy strangling the remains of what had once been sacred ground. The entrance to the catacombs was hidden behind a section of the collapsed cloister, just as the stories had said, covered in a thick layer of moss and dirt. With a few sharp tugs, I pried open the rusted gate and descended into the darkness below. The air was thick and damp, the stone walls cold beneath my fingertips as I navigated the narrow passageway. The flicker of my flashlight seemed weak against the oppressive blackness. It felt like the earth itself was pressing in on me, squeezing the breath from my lungs. As I walked deeper, the silence became unnerving. No rats, no dripping water, just the sound of my own footsteps echoing back at me. The legends said that the Rugmaker had been both blind and insane for as long as anyone could remember, born without sight. Yet despite this, his hands could weave more intricate patterns than any living soul. They said the rugs he created weren't just ordinary works of art. They were prisons. Prisons for something far older and far darker than any human could comprehend. I wasn't sure how much I believed. After all, I'd seen a lot in my time, but this seemed too far-fetched even for me. But as I moved deeper into the catacombs, my skepticism began to wane. The temperature dropped, and the walls seemed to close in tighter, narrowing with each step. The further I went, the more I felt watched, like something was lurking just beyond the reach of my light, waiting. Eventually, I reached a large stone door, barely visible in the dim light. Symbols, worn by time but still recognizable, were carved into the surface, ancient sigils, some of them familiar from my studies in demonology. My pulse quickened. This was it. I pushed open the door with a groan of ancient hinges, the sound echoing unnaturally in the enclosed space. Inside, the room was large and circular, lit by faint, flickering candles placed in alcoves along the walls. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of old wax and something metallic and putrid, like blood and flesh. In the center of the room sat a figure, the Rugmaker. He was hunched over a loom, his back to me, his gnarled fingers weaving quickly, methodically, maniacally, into a half-finished rug stretched across the wooden frame. Even from a distance, I could see the strands of hair, black and gray, woven tightly into the fabric. His head was completely bald, his skin pale and stretched tight over his bones, as though he'd been down here for centuries, forgotten by time. And then, without turning, he spoke. "You've come to see my work." His voice was low, almost a rasp, the words rough and worn like stone. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. He hadn't looked at me. He couldn't, of course, but he knew I was there. "How do you—" I started, but he cut me off. "The walls speak to me," he said, his hands continuing their delicate work. "They tell me of those who wander too far, those who seek what they should not find." I swallowed, my throat dry. There was something wrong about this place, something that twisted the air and made my skin crawl. "The rugs," I managed to say, forcing the words out. "Is it true? Are they made from—" "Hair," he interrupted again, his tone flat. "Yes, human hair and tears. From the innocents are best, their pains and anguish woven into every strand." He paused, running his fingers over the nearly finished piece. "Each one holds a stolen soul, and in each soul, a demon sleeps." I stepped closer, trying to get a better look at the rug. The hair shimmered faintly in the candlelight, woven into patterns too intricate to be man-made. Yet here it was, flowing beneath his fingers, as though it were alive, as though it were breathing. He finally stopped weaving, his hands stilling over the rug. Slowly, he turned his face toward me, and I saw his eyes, milky, sightless, yet piercing in a way that made my skin prickle. "You came to see," he whispered, his lips curling into a slight smile. "But what you truly seek is not the rugs, is it?" My heart pounded, and I took a step back. "What do you mean?" He let out a dry laugh, the sound like sand scraping over rock. "You've heard the stories, but you don't believe them. Not fully." He reached out a hand, gesturing to the rug beside him. "Touch it. See for yourself." Every instinct told me to run, to get out of that place and never look back. But my curiosity, my need for answers, pulled me forward. I knelt beside the rug, the woven strands of hair glistening in the dim light. Slowly, I extended my hand, fingers trembling as they grazed the surface. The moment I touched it, I felt a shock, a jolt of energy that raced up my arm, freezing me in place. The room seemed to spin, and for a moment, I wasn't in the catacombs anymore. I was somewhere else, somewhere dark. I could hear whispers, faint at first but growing louder, more insistent, like voices crying out in agony. My vision blurred, and I saw faces, twisted, tormented faces, pressed against the fabric, mouths open in silent screams. I tried to pull away, but my hand was stuck. The rug was pulling at me, the strands tightening around my fingers, wrapping around my wrist like a living thing. Panic surged through me, and I yanked my arm back with all my strength, stumbling away from the loom. The whispers faded, but the feeling of cold dread lingered. The Rugmaker was watching me now, his empty eyes somehow following my movements. His smile had widened. "They want you," he said softly, his voice almost reverent. "You've seen them. Now you belong to them." Before I could react, the air around me shifted. It was subtle at first, but then I felt it, the same pulling sensation as before, only this time it was all over. My skin tingled, my muscles tightening, and I looked down to see strands of hair, my hair, floating toward the loom, winding themselves into the fabric. I tried to scream, but no sound came. My mouth opened, but it was like the air had been sucked from the room. The Rugmaker cackled insanely. His hands moved faster now, his fingers dancing over the loom, weaving the strands of my own hair into the rug, trapping me inside. I could feel myself unraveling, my body stretching thin, my mind slipping away, becoming part of the pattern. I fought. I tried to run, but it was useless. The Rugmaker was too strong, his curse too ancient. With every thread he wove, I faded more, until there was nothing left but the whispers, the voices of those who came before me, trapped in the endless patterns of his demonic art. Now I am here, inside the rug. I see everything, hear everything. I am part of the weaving, my soul bound to the threads, and in here, I am not alone, for I sense a dark presence bound inside of here with me. A demon, waiting for its chance to lash out and steal the soul of whoever comes close to this cursed rug. So I wait. We both wait. For the next one. For you.